What's up, YouTube? This is Brian, also known as Sherwood Sound, and now I finally get to share my opinion as to what the top rappers are of all time. I had previously worked out the top 200 rappers of all time with a consensus list, basically pulling different sources from across the internet, blogs and music critics and other videos, and creating a top 200 list that pulled many sources to come up with a consensus list of all basically the internet's opinion of the top 200 rappers of all time. But after that project, I wanted to share my own opinion, so here I am going to do that. Just to let you know a little bit about my music tastes. Basically, since I started to be able to form my own music opinions, I got into hip hop. Hip hop really started to come into its own in the late 80s, early 90s. Just to date myself a little bit, I am old. So I remember when Power 106 first started to pop off, I would hear songs that I really liked. I'd wait for them to come on, and then I would, record them on my tape deck so I could listen back to them. So that definitely dates me. But I've been listening to hip hop for a long time. I later really got into punk rock music, and then I really got into EDM after that. I actually produce EDM now. But hip hop has always been a part of my musical taste since I was young, for 30 plus years now. So I really love hip hop, and it's really been something that's been important to me. I do have some biases when I'm giving out this list, so be prepared for that. I'm not claiming that this list is like the perfect list or the correct list or whatever. It is my list, so it goes with my tastes. I am from LA, so I do have a West Coast bias, and I do kind of have a coastal bias as well. While I love a lot of Southern rap, there's some stuff that just doesn't jive with me, and you'll kind of see that as my list comes together. Again, take my opinions with a grain of salt. What I'm going to be doing in this video is I came up with a top 60 list, but this video in particular is not going to be that top 60 list. This is going to be honorable mentions and honorable-ish mentions. The honorable mentions are people that are really pushing into that top 60 that I have. I didn't do a top 50, I did a top 60. So people I think are really close to making the cut, artists that I love, artists that I think deserve a little more credit, people who I think deserve to be in the conversation of the greatest rappers of all time. Then I have honorable-ish mentions. These rappers I don't think are bad. I want to be very clear about that. But they are rappers that I don't particularly jive with. I'm going to give my reasons as to why these rappers I don't have in my top 50. These are rappers that are generally considered top 50 rappers or top 60 rappers that I don't think really belong there. I will give my 2 cents on that. Again, I don't think any of these rappers in that honorable-ish mentions are bad. I just don't think they really belong in the conversation with these other guys, and I'll give my opinions why. So without further ado, let's get into the list of honorable mentions and honorable-ish mentions. And again, I'll give my top 60 rappers in 2 parts after this video. Let's get into it. All right, so here we go. The honorable mentions and honorable-ish mentions of the top 50 rappers of all time. This is off the dome. These are my opinions, so be patient with me. I'm not going scripted on this one. So, there may be a little too many ums. I'm just kind of working out the kinks and getting used to this. But so here's my opinions, my honorable mentions. The first one is a tough one, man. Juice WRLD. I love Juice WRLD. I think that it's a tragedy that he was gone so soon. I really think that he had the talent that so many other kind of these emo rappers really try to just basically copy him. They try to be him. Unfortunately, there was only one Juice WRLD, and I think he really had the talent. I really think he was the embodiment of kind of emo trap and emo rap, and I think that it's just sad because he was the innovator and the face of a very young movement in hip hop. And when he died, that kind of stunted the growth of emo trap and emo rap. And I really think that, it just wasn't the same after he passed. And the songs that he came up with, I know he didn't have a lot of material, and it's why he didn't make my top 60, although he is close. If that 60 spot that I have on my list, once you see my list, I could have gone with a bunch of names there, and Juice WRLD is definitely one of them, because the songs that he did leave us with are just amazing. They're so emotionally charged. They're so raw. They're so reflective and mature, and these were kind of the first things that Juice WRLD was able to put out. It's really incredible that a lot of guys that passed too early. I'm not going to say he's Kurt Cobain, but Kurt Cobain, he still had 3 or 4 albums to refine his sound and to really kind of hone his craft. Juice WRLD didn't even really have a chance to do that, man. He had 1.5 albums of material, some stuff that he put out on the internet, and and he was gone. And the stuff that he left us with, even though he had no chance to kind of refine his sound, to come up with, whatever the next iteration of Juice WRLD was going to be, he was gone. But what he left us with was some amazing music, and it really is tragic. And I love Juice WRLD. I think that he just had raw talent, and I think that basically emo trap wasn't the same after he passed because everyone tried to be him and just couldn't. Next up, we got Future. I've never been a huge fan of Future, but I think that his music, unlike a lot of guys, as they get older and their kind of wave fades into the background, they're considered less good. I think Future almost is like has aged well. I think he's like kind of like a fine wine because as trap kind of turned into rage, when you go back to trap now, you can really see that Future was a cut above his peers because trap isn't really the hotness right now. Rage, everyone's trying to hop onto the rage sound or the drill sound, and so you kind of look back at when trap was popping, when Migos was big and Future was big, and they kind of ruled everything. Future really was a cut above, I think, his peers. Now, it's hard to put him in a top 50 rapper list or a top 60 rapper list of all time because, yeah, his subject matter is repetitive. He obviously is not like a technical rapper. He is hugely influential, though. You still have people trying to copy his flow to this date. There's a bunch of rappers who get a lot of static for trying to copy him, from Cardi on Music for a couple songs, from Ian basically trying to copy Future. He's obviously hugely influential. Now, can he be considered a top rapper when his writing isn't that great, his subject matter kind of stays repetitive, obviously he doesn't change up the formula very much? It's hard to say how much influence can carry you. But Future definitely deserves his flowers, man. And I think, like I said, I'm not a huge fan, but I think as time has passed, he really showed that he was kind of the king of that wave, and his music ages very well. DS2, I've listened back to it, and while I wasn't a fan of it initially, it's a good album, man. And you can really give him credit for really kind of creating the top shelf trap that he put out. Next up, we got Talib Kweli. Obviously, a hugely amazing rapper. He's an underground legend. Obviously, Black Star is an amazing group. Him and Most Def, Yasin Bey. He's a legend. He keeps it political. He can do different styles. The reason he doesn't make my list, I could have easily put him at 60 and wouldn't have gotten a lot of argument, like edged out who I have at 60, who you have to wait and see. A little teaser. But he, no one would have complained. He gets a lot of credit, as well he should. He doesn't have kind of the solo catalog or even really the breadth of catalog that I can really consider him for the top 50 rappers of all time. No doubt his talent puts him there. But I just don't know if he's innovative enough or unique enough to really make him stand out, and his catalog just doesn't have enough there, especially solo work, to really say, he's a top rapper of all time. But, Talib Kweli is amazing. There's no doubt he's a top 100 rapper of all time. And I think he's a standout rapper. And, he's close, but not quite in my top 60. Next up is Kool Keith, a true innovator and, a guy who definitely liked to keep it weird. Usually the East Coast, I'm not going to get, I don't want to get too polarizing as far as my coastal bias, but usually the West Coast is where the weirdness and the innovation happens, and where, the East Coast is where the technical skill happens, and that's where, you have the guys who are really honing their craft. Obviously those are kind of cliches and those go both ways, but Kool Keith definitely kept the East Coast weird, man. He is an amazing guy. He's an amazing rapper. Dr. Octagon, that whole phase is innovative, really keeping it underground. and not being afraid to like kind of just bend the rules and do his own thing, not following trends, just being free, feeling free to be weird. And he definitely has clever bars and is definitely just an interesting figure in East Coast hip hop. And again, a guy who's very close to being in the top. Just to like give you a little heads up, I have the consensus list ranking below on the bottom here of the list of things. I have their name, their birthday. You can see that where they're from, and a track that I really like of theirs that I think makes their sound clear. And then I also have where they fell on the consensus list. Vince Staples. This Vince Staples is an amazing rapper. This spot could have also gone to Absol or Schoolboy Q, other West Coast guys who I think are really interesting because they are street rappers, but they also are not afraid to make innovative and bold choices with production, not afraid to be a little unique, a little different. They're not necessarily guys who are trying to prove that they're the hardest on the street. I did go with Vince Staples. I favor him slightly, maybe because I think that his best work is still ahead of him. And that's not to say that Absol hasn't had amazing products. And obviously Schoolboy Q released Blue Lips, which is, his probably best work and one of the best hip hop albums when it was released. But Vince Staples is a little younger, and he's very clever. He's a very interesting figure because he kind of has this melodic, monotone, unassuming delivery and he makes some really interesting production choices. Which are usually fairly sparse too. But dude is very clever, and I mean, I don't know if you've ever watched interviews with Vince Staples. The dude's hilarious, and I think that I still think he may have his best album in front of him. So we'll see. But he's definitely pushing the top 60 as far as I'm concerned, and I got to give Vince Staples props. Next up is Immortal Technique. Another honorable mention. The last guy, Immortal Technique, I think really keeps hip hop revolutionary. Hip hop, has always been or has had a lot of political artists. I mean, obviously you have Chuck D, but even when you go back to Furious 5 and The Message, you really have some political things being said in hip hop. It's always been a place for people to air their grievances with society. A lot of hip hop is born out of poverty, and when you have poverty, you have inequality, and there takes people to point these kind of inequalities out. Immortal Technique was really in the backpack rap era. He was the backpacker who was really keeping it revolutionary. You also have Jedi Mind Tricks, obviously, but Immortal Technique really kept it revolutionary. He was not afraid to speak his mind. He wasn't afraid to piss people off, sometimes taking that to the real extreme. But it was always good that hip hop was able to keep revolutionary spirit, and Immortal Technique helped do that. Next up, we got Be Real. I think Be Real really doesn't get enough credit for a lot of things. I mean, he really mainstreamed like stoner hip hop. I think Wiz Khalifa and others really owe a lot to Be Real, and his kind of willingness to put weed at the forefront of his songs. I mean, there was obviously some of that going on with Both Thugs and Harmony as well, but Be Real really put weed to the forefront, and he was just such a unique voice. No one sounded like him. He was also hugely influential for Latino visibility in hip hop. Like, he was the first. I don't know, when I say he's the first, this is just what I know off the top of my head. I've not really done a ton of research, but I think he was the first really visible Latino rapper that got a lot of play. So he kind of opened the door for Latinos to have a place in hip hop. And some of those Cypress Hill albums were amazing. And then they came back. They were like, they were Insane in the Membrane, and they had that whole phase. And then they came back with a whole nother wave where they got popular again with Rockstar and that kind of era. And, they had two big eras, peak eras. They were hugely popular. Be Real was innovative and unique. He didn't quite make my top 60, but I really think Be Real gets underrated. I see my head is in front of that current position, but, he was amazing. CL Smooth. Here's another guy who I think is hugely underrated, who doesn't get his props, dude. dude was on 2 certified classics. I mean, there's a lot of these guys you could say, oh, is that a classic album? Is that not a classic album? You know, CL Smooth was definitely on 2 classic albums, Mecca and the Soul Brother, and his other album. They really made hip hop the mainstream, but they still kept it intelligent. And Pete Rock gets so much of the shine in this duo, and I don't know why CL Smooth kind of gets overlooked. He rapped over 2 classic albums. Pete Rock, they had no rapping influence. I mean, they were CL Smooth's voice over those 2 albums, and yet he wasn't in the top 200 of consensus rappers. I don't think he was mentioned on anybody's list. Now, do I think he's a top 50 rapper? Probably not, but like the fact that no one even gives this dude any flowers is pretty wild to me, considered he was such a pivotal. He was, a pivotal member of a duo where he was the sole rapper, on 2 of the most important hip hop albums of all time. So, CL Smooth, get your flowers, bro. I see you. The RZA. All right. So here's a great example of it sucks to be in Wu-Tang when you're like the 5th best member. Obviously, RZA's production is, killer and famous and, so responsible for Wu-Tang's sound. RZA was the driving force behind Wu-Tang's sound. Without those beats, Wu-Tang has a bunch of talented rappers, but they needed those beats to cement what Wu-Tang became. And that was all RZA. But he doesn't get enough credit for his rapping, and that's just because he's down on the list of such a legendary group of rappers that it's hard to give him his shine. And while he didn't rhyme all the time, and some of his kind of metaphors get a little like hard to understand or hard to parse, dude has an amazing voice, and he has some really clever rhymes, some really clever writing. He wasn't as consistent as some of the other members. And again, it's too bad because he was a part of Wu-Tang. Put that dude in some other groups, and I think he would have a lot more of an opportunity to stand out. RZA does not get enough shine for his rapping. I love his rapping. When he comes in a Wu-Tang song, I'm like, oh man, get back to Ghostface or get back to Method or whoever. I'm like, dude, he can put down some bars, dude. So shout out to RZA. Now Bahamadia. Bahamadia didn't have a huge bunch of album peaks, but Collage is amazing, and Bahamadia is an amazing rapper. We'll talk about some female rappers in my honorable ish mentions. I hope I don't get too much shit for people thinking that I'm like sexist or whatever. I love female rappers, and I think there's a lot of talent, and it's really unfortunate that there's so much inequality, especially in the discussion as to who's the best. But when you listen to Collage, man, you cannot tell me that Bahamadia is not one of the most talented rappers of all time. She floats on those beats. She is so smooth in this jazzy, rappy, kind of lyrical, melodic rap style. I mean, she kills it, dude. Go listen to Collage right now. If it's not a project that you're really familiar with, go listen to that project. It'll blow your mind. The jazz rap is amazing. Her flow over it is amazing. She has some clever wordplay. She has some good punchlines. She really is a total package. And her follow-up albums are good too. They're not as they're not. It's hard when you have such a high watermark to follow them up. And Bahamadia, for whatever reason, gets lost a bit in the shuffle of discussions of the best rappers of all time, and even the best female rappers of all time. Again, I'll discuss a couple other names coming up who I think she quite literally crushes them. But she's the real deal. She's a real talent, and I think she should get a lot more discussion into the top rappers of all time. Next up, Phife Dawg. It's hard to do with Phife Dawg because, he was in a group with Q-Tip. When you're paired with such an overpowering figure, even though Q-Tip is kind of a quiet figure, he is so talented in Tribe, and Phife Dawg plays his role, right? They kind of balance each other out, but Phife Dawg, his writing, I would say, is not the best, but he has he's a great technician. He plays well with Q-Tip. and he definitely serves his role in the group. I, he should definitely be in the top 100 rappers of all time. I think the kind of the problem with Fife is that his writing wasn't always up to snuff. He kind of goes back to the same themes a lot. And a lot of you'll even hear rhymes repeated if you listen to enough A Tribe Called Quest. So I love Fife, and he's one of the greatest of all times. He definitely belongs in the discussion of greatest rappers of all time. But when you're paired with Q-Tip, it's rough. Kind of the same thing with RZA. It's tough when you're in Wu-Tang Clan. Jeru the Damager. Dude's amazing. Anyone who works a lot with DJ Premier knows how to pick rappers to go over his beats. Jeru is amazing. He's kind of a total package East Coast rapper. Great writing, great voice, great cadence, great technicality, great. He has a lot of things going for him, and he really doesn't get mentioned up there. There's another East Coast rapper in my honorable ish mentions who I'm going to kind of poop on, and I think Jeru. I think that rapper in particular is who he thinks he's who Jeru is, and I think that Jeru is the real deal. I mean, he's the total package. He's so clever. He's so dynamic on the mic. You can see it here on the consensus list. He was 144, which blows my stinking mind, bro. The dude is definitely one of the top 100 rappers of all time. Definitely pushing the top 50 rappers of all time. Deserves way more credit for how talented this guy is. Now we'll hit up Bus Driver. You could also kind of put AC Alone in this as well. As far as like West Coast early legends who were kind of playing with the underground scene, really forming the foundation in LA to create the underground, the bedrock for art rap and underground rap in LA. We have Bus Driver. Dude is not afraid to be himself. Dude is wacky as hell. Listen to any of his projects, and he's definitely going to hit you out of left field a lot. But there's no doubt the dude is talented. He can create cohesive works of art. The dude has lots of clever wordplay, lots of great punchlines, and definitely is not afraid to be himself, and really is important to the LA underground scene. And I really appreciate his music, and definitely should get more conversation as far as being one of the greatest rappers of all time. Maybe not top 50, but certainly top 100. And shout out to Bus Driver and AC Alone for that matter. And Mac Miller, he's the last one I think on my honorable mentions. Mac Miller is kind of an amazing story as to his whole pathway. He started off as like bro rap, almost kind of like parody rap, like kind of like a party rap. And then he transitioned and has had an amazing creative metamorphosis as his time in the spotlight. Unfortunately, his time in the spotlight was also plagued with a lot of abuse, drug abuse, obviously. And it's tough to talk about Mac Miller, but dude was obviously talented, and dude was just beginning this amazing journey of becoming kind of this party rapper to one of the most serious and introspective rappers in hip hop. And to lose him is tragic. And he really was showing just how you pick a lane to start a career doesn't mean that's the lane you have to stay in. There's a chance to change and to grow. And I think that's a lesson for all of us artistically and just personally, that, just because you're in a position now doesn't mean you can't change who you are. And dude was talented. I will be completely honest. I'm not a huge fan of Mac Miller's music. I don't listen to a lot of it, but I respect the craft. I respect his talent, and I respect the journey, even though he may not be one of my favorites. All right, now we're getting into honorable-ish mentions. I mentioned this in the intro, but I'll mention it here again. I don't think any of these rappers are bad, but I do think that these guys, while probably top 100, I would definitely not rate most of them above 80, and I will say why. There's some very controversial picks in here. Feel free to call me an idiot in the comments. I can take it. I'm a big boy. But this is one that's probably not very disputed. It's Dr. Dre. It's hard with Dr. Dre, man, because he was formative. I mean, literally, without Dr. Dre, I don't know if I would have ever gotten into hip hop as much as I did. The Chronic, Doggy Style, the Chronic 2000, these albums, were so critical in my music enjoyment experience. He's such an amazing producer and collaborator. He knows how to pick an artist. He knows how to make some amazing tracks. And one of the things that he doesn't, his rapping ability has always been suspicious for a very specific reason that I'll mention in a minute. But he's rapped against some of the greatest rappers of all time in some of these songs. Eminem, obviously, Snoop Dogg, obviously, and he never sounds out of place. He never sounds like, you're not like, oh, dude, there's this amazing rapper, and then there's this whack ass rapper I got to listen to. Like Dr. Dre holds his own against some of the greatest rappers of all time. He has a commanding voice. He technically can pull off the bars. The biggest issue with Dr. Dre is it's pretty much agreed upon at this point that he may have not written any raps ever. He may have written some hooks for some of his songs, but it's very likely that Dr. Dre has never written a bar. Or if he has, he hasn't written very many. Most of his stuff has been made for him. It is sad. There's guys in my top 60 who I'm going to go through who definitely have had ghostwriters too. So it's kind of like, well, where do you draw the line, right? Like, there's ghostwriters throughout hip hop, especially in the biggest names. A lot of those guys use ghostwriters a lot. So how do I give Dr. Dre such a hard time when so many other dudes, use ghostwriters? It's just because it's pretty much known that he doesn't really write at all. As far as bars are concerned, like I said, he may do some hooks. He may have written a line here or there, but pretty much everything's been written for him since the beginning of his career. From Eazy-E to Snoop Dogg to Eminem. Most of his collaborators are known to have ghostwritten for him. It's unfortunate. I still think he has a good voice and he's a good rapper, but obviously not much of a writer. And that's why, he's here 52. Like, I don't know how you can really, if he's not writing, I don't know how you can rank him above 80. Cannabis. All right. So Cannabis is an amazing writer. He's obviously very intelligent. He crazy rhyme schemes, but the reason I can't rate him in the top 50 is just the musicality, man. You listen to some Cannabis tracks and you're like, dude, this is amazing writing, rhyme schemes, doing stuff that only MF Doom can achieve, right? Like, rhyming bars between bars on top of bars and just like blowing your mind. But there's just not a ton of musicality there. He does pull off some stuff. Like there's a song I shout out on this of Slides. Second Round Knockout is an amazing track, but there's some in his discography, if you listen to some of his songs, that he's not even really rapping on beat. His production choices are often lackluster at best. He's really out there to show you his skill, and he is skilled. That's why he's a top 100 rapper of all time. But I just can't rate him, in my top 50 as talented as he is. MC Light. Now this is going to get tough because, you immediately start saying the name of some female rappers and, you're going to get shit. I gave Bahamadia her flowers. I don't think she gets enough shine. I think MC Light gets too much shine, and I'll tell you specifically why. There's kind of this need to rewrite rap as egalitarian, like especially in its early history. MC Light was coming up with a lot of really popular rappers that changed the game. You talk about the pillars of rap with Rakim and KRS-One and Big Daddy Kane and all these guys, right? And even Run DMC guys. And you're like, there seems to be a need in the hip hop community to put a female in there, and MC Light is the choice, right? She was the OG of high quality technical evolving rap. So she gets that shine, but I just can't put her there, man. You go listen to her bars, you go listen to her songs. No doubt she's talented and she is good for her. She is very competent for when she was coming up, right? She was even good, but she was not an innovator in the same way as the other people were. She would have great bars, even great verses, and you could say, damn, that girl is talented. But for the most part, her body of work is competent at, as far as I could say. She has a lot of standout moments, not a lot of great projects, and not a lot of consistency amongst her songs. So while MC Light is a dope MC, a great female MC, probably one of the 10 best female MCs of all time, it's hard to put her with the heavyweights of rap, to put her in the top 50 when, I just don't feel it. So I try to be honest. Hopefully I don't get a lot of shit for being sexist, but it is what it is. Now we have Bun B. So now I'm getting I caused myself problems with females, and now I'm going to have problems with people in the South. I do love a lot of Atlanta rap. I will have a chance to give Atlanta rappers their shine. The Houston rap thing, I can't with Bun B, man. As a top 50, I mean a top 100, sure, for influence alone. I know that people love him in Texas, but you can listen to his songs and there's just not a lot of innovation. There's not a lot of variance. There's not a lot of, I mean, I could say there's a lot of consistency because a lot of the music sounds the same. I can see the appeal. I can see him for making trunk bangers. I can see a lot of people saying like Bun B is my favorite. Like, dude, if Bun B is your favorite, that's great. But am I going to say that Bun B is as technical as so many of the other, like, the technicians, the greatest rappers? I guess I could say all that to say that, my list is going to have a lot of technical rappers on it. They're not all going to be technical, but it's hard for me with a guy who, you know, a lot of the music sounds very similar to other songs. He's definitely focused on making a certain type of music in a certain way, with not a lot of variation in his cadences or his delivery or his subject matter. Again, top 100 rapper, very influential, not for me. Jadakiss. So here's the guy. So yeah, I'm just burning all the legends down. I realize now that I've set myself up for failure. If you don't want to watch my top 60 because of this, it is what it is. Like I said, I am not. I'm not a rapper. I don't know what I know what I'm talking about as so much as I know I'm a fan and I know my tastes. But I think that Jadakiss thinks he's Jeru the Damager, and I just don't see it, man. A lot of great punchlines, but the writing just isn't there, man. It's not consistent. And he just doesn't stand out a way a lot of other East Coast rappers do. When I listen to East Coast rappers, I will, you listen to like Pharaoh Monch, or you listen to, I don't know, J. Rue the Damager, or Cool G Rap, or whatever, like the technicians, the lyricists, even like freaking, Pusha T or whatever. They have things that make them stand out and unique. And I just don't think that Jadakiss is unique enough or interesting enough or has done enough good music, especially across a whole project. Like, is anyone listening to Jadakiss project front to back? If you are, good for you. But he has some good singles. He has some good punchlines. Jadakiss is great for moments. But I don't hear anything conceptual from him. He doesn't never really get too deep in his songs. I don't want to get too negative. Obviously, he's a top 100 rapper of all time. Definitely, is very talented. Just, I think that he's mad overrated, in my opinion. Now for Ti, Ti makes trap bangers. I think he gets a lot of credit for being like the first guy to popularize trap, and good for him. But I think he's kind of overrated. He has some club hits, some stripper music. All that's great. Just because you make some really popular pop tracks and you were the first to popularize a wave, I just don't see the technicality. I don't see the variance. I don't see the innovation. I mean, maybe you could say he's innovative because literally he's popularized trap. And maybe I'm just a hater. But I just don't see Ti, when I'm looking at the names of the greatest rappers of all time, putting Ti in there is a challenge for me. It's just not a lot of deep music, not a lot of, variance in his sound, not a lot of desire to, really go too deep beyond the surface, and I'll leave it at that. Now here's probably going to be the hottest take of all the hot takes: Scarface, because I know rappers love Scarface, and I'm not a rapper, so f me, what the f do I know, right? And that's a perfectly valid opinion. F me, what the f do I know? Scarface is a good rapper, even a great rapper, but I just can't consider him one of the greatest of all time. I just don't see it in the music. he has some great bangers. He is hugely influential. I've now pissed off Houston with two of their legends. Um, but I just can't do it with Scarface. He gets a lot of credit for being like, you know, he kind of in that vein of like Tupac, obviously completely different style of music, but like he's like the hood poet, right? He's like the guy on the streets who's also smart, who's introspective, who has some great, he's kind of that guy, that the storyteller. Um, all great. I just don't see it in the writing. I don't see it's complex enough. The technicality isn't very good. There's not a lot of consistency across projects where I know, some of his albums are considered classics. I can listen to those. I've tried to listen to those and be like, this is a classic album. I just don't see it. It's especially doubly bad because at least Bun B, he's rated in a lot of people's like late 40s, early 50s, like I can get a pass on Bun B, but for me to kind of take Scarface out of the conversation, I realize that kind of is blasphemy to a lot of people, and I apologize. But I personally just don't see it. I don't see the writing. I don't see the technicality that a lot of people credit to him. He's an innovator and a legend, and but he's not in my top 50. Sorry. Now Queen Latifah. Queen Latifah is an amazing figure. A figure for femininity, a figure for strength, a figure for black empowerment. These are all amazing things that she has come to embody. And she deserves all the flowers she gets for being an amazing person, an amazing figure in hip hop. But again, we're talking about the top greatest 50 rappers of all time, and I just don't see it in the music. I see it in everything else. The presentation, her affiliation with native tongues. You know, again, all of her messages are great. And does she belong in the top 100 rappers of all time? Sure. But I just don't see it in the music above, that 100 mark. I don't know of anybody who I've never been in a car and heard anyone say bump Queen Latifah. Now, granted, I don't hang out with a lot of middle-aged African American women, so that may be why. But even if you look at like her streams and stuff, like, no, dude, this is going to sound harsh, but no one's really listening to Queen Latifah. Like, they recognize her and they know her, and she's a celebrity, and people accredit a great talent to her, but it's just not in the music. You and ITY is a great song. She has some amazing songs, and that's great, dude. You can have like 3 or 4 bangers, but that does not put you in the conversation for the greatest rappers of all time. And by the way, I love Queen Latifah. I think she's cool as fuck, and I think her whole like empowerment vibe is great. Her embracing of femininity and her Africanness is amazing, but it's just the music just isn't there for me. I'm sorry. All right, and I think I actually have one more slide after this. I can't even remember who I have after this, but Ice T, you know, definitely like the forerunner of gangster rap, but it's not. I just, you listen to the music again. It's like kind of one of those things where like Ice T is a figure, like he's one of the OG gangster rap, and he is an OG for sure, and he deserves credit for being one of the first people to take rap in that lane, right? But the music is just not there. I mean, I would almost go, dude. This is gonna sound hater as fuck, especially because I have a West Coast bias. But going back and listening to old Ice-T albums is like a tough listen, bro. Like the subject matter's hard. It's like demonstratively, and there's a person in the top 60. I'll wait for that to get there. Who also I have this problem with. I mean, it's like aggressively misogynistic. Like obviously Future is misogynistic, but Ice-T is like wild, bro. Like, and like, the technicality isn't there. He's really kind of stuck in like the early hip hop kind of formula of kind of how cadences worked and flows work. I mean, he really was popping when, Rakim was innovating, and even Ice Cube after that. Like Ice Cube is like the gangster rapper who made gangster rap into a more technical art form and a more innovative art form. And Ice-T is very much in that old like party rock style of hip hop where it's just very staccato and repetitive and like, he obviously didn't make disco, but like kind of how those delivery was on like the Sugar Hill Gang beats and stuff like that. Like he is very much in that vein of hip hop, and that's how he delivers his rhymes. And is really very much rhyme and sing songy. Taking out the rhyming dictionary and this rhymes with this, and we're not going to change up the cadence and the flow too much. Not innovative. He didn't really hop onto what Rakim was doing. He didn't really embrace what even KRS-One was doing, and therefore his kind of albums suffer for that. Mad credit to him for being such a pillar of West Coast hip hop and gangster rap, but the music just isn't there for me. All right, so those were my honorable mentions and honorable-ish mentions for my top 60 rappers of all time. I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry in my introduction for saying so much. This is my first time really going off the dome, going scriptless. And I don't know, that may be a mistake. I'm trying it out. When I'm giving my opinions, I thought it'd be a little more organic if I just didn't use a script, if I just kind of extemporaneously shared my opinions. So there may be a lot of I'm still kind of new to this, but I hope you enjoyed the video. I will be releasing my 60 through 31 best rappers of all time, and then my 30 through 1. I hope you look at those videos. I hope you can also refer back to my top 200 rappers of all time consensus lists that I put out. Were broken into 4 parts. Go check those videos out as well. So please like and subscribe. If the more interaction I get, the more it encourages me to do these videos and pump them out. So I hope you enjoy. I'm just a guy giving my opinions on the internet. So I know you have a lot of guys who do that. So I hope you enjoy my opinions, and thank you very much for watching.